I've never experienced anything like this before. My legs were shaking beneath me. They were vibrating involuntarily. It was uncontrollable. It got to a point where I was struggling to walk. Every step, every time I would land my foot, my whole leg up to my hip would just violently start to shake beneath me. If you keep an eye in this video on my right leg especially, you'll see the vibrations underneath me. How did I get that? In the last week, I've been doing a bit of calf raises. I can't really do much work, when I'm sick. I'm kind of getting better now. I'm almost 100%, but I started doing a lot of standing calf raises, to loosen up my ankles, my calves, so I can squat. I've been feeling really tight with the sickness that I've had. That's where this started, the whole calf raises. Today I got to the gym for the first time in I don't know how long, quite a while. And I decided to do the seated calf raise. I only did 5 sets of 20, 10 kilos aside, so 20 kilos. Very lightweight. I felt like I could have done many more reps per set. I tried to control the reps. But yeah, it felt a bit of a pump. It was no big deal. But when I stepped onto the platform to do some squats, I started shaking. Uncontrollably shaking. My right leg, my right foot especially, was just vibrating underneath me. It got to a point where I was unsure if I would tip over or fall over or what was going on. As the weight progressed, I hit 160 kilo front squat today. Standing perfectly upright, when I first walked the weight up, was the most shaking. As I started bending the knee and going down, almost like the shakes got less and less. ATG, probably no shakes. And all the way up, they would start to increase until I hit the top, and then more shaking. Now, from what I understand about the musculature below the knee, first of all, that is very, very underdeveloped for me. Everything that I do in my training is knee up. I don't do anything for knee down. When I played basketball, we did a lot of running, sidestepping, sliding, basketball-specific stuff, like athletes. You spend most of your time on one foot, and so you train that. You train the lateral, you train not just the sagittal plane movements, you frontal and all sorts of, real life type stuff. I had pretty good ankles. I would roll ankles. I would injure myself during a game, and I would never have time off. I was that resilient. It was only until I started doing sagittal plane movements, basically when I stopped playing basketball, seriously. I started squatting and deadlifting a lot, not running a lot. That's when I started having the ankle rolls, the 2 ankle rolls, one and another one a year later. Basically broke both my ankles at one point, which was really surprising for me at that point because I would roll ankles and not feel it. Now I would roll ankles and snap myself. So for the past 8, 9, maybe even 10 years, man, I haven't had any specific training to musculature below the knee. What I understand about the posterior lower leg, the calf, is that when you are standing straight up, and you're doing a calf raise, you're basically using both muscles, the soleus and the gastrocnemius. When you're in a bent knee position, you're predominantly using the soleus. So I've spent a week doing standing calf raises with no trouble at all, no shakes, no worries. Today was the first time in a very, very long time that I did seated calf raises. And I started getting shakes like you wouldn't believe it. So my logic would serve me to think that it's something to do with the soleus. Looking from top down without, going really deep into it. I don't know if the soleus has any impact on the foot arch. I don't know what is really going on. I know there's a few muscles which I'm not familiar with, which control the foot arch, which pull, that those bones up and create that arch. And I think some of these muscles originate halfway up the shin. I don't know what I've done, but all I know is that my foot got exposed, my lower leg musculature got exposed to such an extent today that basically I was unable to walk after this. I only did 5 sets of 20. It's making me think. I've made a bunch of videos, probably more than a year ago now, talking about strong calves, strong squat, things of that nature, thoughts around that idea and how important it is to have a strong base. I know there's a whole bunch of you guys out there who believe in training the foot. I'm somebody that likes to wear flat shoes. They're not minimalistic shoes, these Chuck Taylors, but they are more minimalist than your other normal shoes with the high heel and cushions everywhere and whatever. I like flat feet. I like minimal support. I spend 12 hours at work standing, essentially. And what I've also noticed when it comes to work is that when I have 2 or 3 weeks off from work and I come back, I put my Chuck Taylors on at work as well, the waterproof ones. I go to work, and that first day, 12 hour, my feet get so freaking sore. And, when that happens, I always think to myself, man, I've deconditioned my feet. My foot arches have started to collapse after like a couple of hours of work of standing, and I start to collapse. And then, the compensation mechanisms that kick in, when you start to fail some of these finer muscles in your feet, in your lower legs. And then you start, maybe get hip pain, like it just travels upstream, right? And you start to compensate. You might even get back pain if you really got flat feet, and valgus knee, which is kind of caused by that, and it flows on. All of a sudden you have hip internal rotation, and you start having gait issues. You start to fall apart basically if your feet are weak. And then after maybe, a week or two of working, I start to develop that resilience, and all of a sudden my feet don't hurt. People always tell me, Van, why don't you wear more supportive shoes, man? This would be crazy. And I always say to them, I want my feet to be strong. I don't want to have supports. If I could, I would walk bare feet around this place. They always say to me, that is wrong thinking, you can't do that. I also say to you guys, I want a strong core. I don't want to use a belt. I don't want to use supports. I want my body to develop the musculature, to develop the mechanisms, to be able to do it by itself. We once upon a time walked bare feet. Recently I've started watching, in the week that I've been sick, I've been looking into Kipchoge. I don't know whether you guys know Kipchoge. He's like the Michael Jordan of running, long distance running, marathon running. Kipchoge comes from a place in Africa where, he doesn't have the lavish lifestyle that even I have, right? A lot of these guys do a lot of bare feet running and walking. It is possible. We don't have to be so protected by all this equipment. In fact, I would argue, and a lot do, that these protective mechanisms that we take changes the way we move. If you have fancy shoes with a fat heel, all of a sudden you start to run differently. You start to heel strike. And that might, seem not a big problem to you, but then the flow-on effects come upstream as well. It is unnatural for us to heel strike. Can you heel strike without any shoes on the concrete? Maybe do a couple of steps. All of a sudden you start to hurt. The skin starts to break down. You need suspension for each step. I've neglected my lower legs, knee down. And I think a lot of these problems have been created because I don't run anymore. All I do is lift heavy ass weight. A lot of these muscles from knee down are endurance type muscles. That's what I'm thinking to myself. And even though I use minimalistic shoes, I don't think it's enough. I've been starting to think about jogging. Not for the sake of, I want to be more fitter, I want to lose some fat or whatever, cardiostatic. I'm thinking more, can this benefit me as an athlete, squatting and deadlifting? If I start to enjoy some mild jogging, of course I'll get fitter. Of course I'll probably draw some fat, some weight. But I'm thinking about that foot arch. I'm thinking about essentially running like a boxer. If you think about how a boxer runs, kind of like small steps, jogging along the way. I'm not thinking about running, 10Ks as fast as I can, whatever. I'm thinking about like bouncing on my feet, training that. Because ultimately, if we're being, honest with ourselves, the way we are made as animals, we are made for endurance. I'm not an expert at this, but I think this is one of the reasons why Homo sapiens survived, and the Neanderthals and other species failed, because we were built for endurance. We would literally walk our prey down over days. Which animal can outwalk us? We can't outrun a cheetah, we can't outrun a lot of these animals, but after a few days of walking, these animals just die because they're not built for endurance like we are. So we are endurance athletes first. That's the first point. You can't change it. I don't care how you're built. That is our first role. What we're doing with this powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting business is that we are skipping that first step and we're trying to enhance other things, which is fine. We can improve our strength and vertical ability and all these kind of power movements. But I'm starting to think it is a foolish thought. It is a foolish approach to skip our innate, purpose. I really think we should be doing something along those lines. I love nature. I love hiking. I loved running once upon a time. The reason why I stopped running was because my whole life I ran for basketball, for soccer. And, by the time I hit 20, I really wanted to put some mass on my body. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm 33 now. I've learned a lot about putting mass on, getting stronger. I've come a long way. But I'm thinking to myself now, I'm not going to start tomorrow, but the seed has been planted. I feel weak below the knee. Sure, we can do supplemental exercises like, tib raises, anterior tibialis raises, calf raises, things of that nature. But what is running? Running does all of that and more. Running is a unilateral exercise. So what happens when you run? Your hip gets engaged. Your torso your core gets engaged. There's a twist. There's a lot of good stuff that happens in running. I'm thinking about it. I need to think about it some more. But these symptoms that I've been, I watch a lot of my videos, before I even make the video, I'll take a set, record a set. I'll go sit down on the bench and watch the video. Most of the time, I watch the video. I don't care if it's a bar or whatever, and I look for things. I look for what am I doing, how's it feeling versus what I'm seeing on the camera now. And this is my method to improve. And for some time now, I would want to even say a year, I've been noticing my heels starting to come off. Now, we can speculate why that is, how that is. My innate thought process is that the posterior lower leg is tight. It's probably tight because it's weak. That is my always basic knowledge of strength and weaknesses. Something that is tight is probably weak. You can stretch it, be my guest, stretching a weak structure. But that is not a good idea. You have 10 soldiers on the front line. It is weak. So they bunch up together because they want to survive. And you're like, well, I'm not defending the whole frontier. You guys need to spread out again. You spread them out again, they get picked off because they're weak. Same kind of analogy for the body. Something that is bunched up is trying to protect itself, trying to survive. You stretch that, it becomes more susceptible to tearing, to popping, all of those things. I'm weak in my lower legs. And going back 10 years after I stopped playing basketball, started training with weights, I started to see some of these symptoms. Heels, foot arches getting flatter. Roll one ankle, roll another ankle after 15 years of playing basketball, not rolling anything. All of a sudden I start to roll and break. After I started doing bilateral squats, deadlifts, bench press, these types of things, started putting on mass, started getting heavier, heavier body with weaker and weaker and weaker musculature below the knee. I wonder if this type of thinking could simply make me stronger because I have a stronger base. I'm not talking about becoming a marathon runner. I'm simply thinking about, let's entertain this idea, get some stronger feet, stronger anterior, posterior leg, lower leg. Let's see how that would translate into a better athlete. I appreciate all of you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.